Beneath the thickness of centuries-old ice, where winds rage and darkness reigns, lies a continent about which we know frighteningly little. Antarctica is more than just an icy wasteland at the edge of the world. It is a place where mystery lingers beneath the ice, where ancient maps point to the impossible, and traces of vanished expeditions still stir the imagination. Today we will dive into the most eerie and mysterious secrets of the sixth continent. Ready for another dose of history that isn't covered in textbooks? Then subscribe, and let's discover together what's hidden beneath the ice of Antarctica. From secret Nazi bases under the ice, one of the most disturbing concerns the supposed Third Reich bases hidden deep beneath the continent's ice caps. This story dates back to 1938, when Germany sent an expedition to the Southern Ocean codenamed New Swabia. The mission's official purpose was reconnaissance for whaling, but strange details of its preparation and results still raise suspicions. German ships delivered tens of tons of equipment to the icy continent. Aircraft dropped swastika flags over the territories, and some sources claim that engineers were scouting sites for underground complexes. This version became the basis for the legend of a secret base, 211, which supposedly existed beneath the ice, protected by mountains and glacial tunnels. Rumors intensified after World War II, when Nazi archives were partially destroyed or classified, and the fates of many high-ranking officers and engineers remained unknown. Proponents of the theory argue that some of the Reich's elite may have fled not to South America, but to Antarctica, where hidden refugees had been prepared in advance. Operation High Jump in 1946, a large-scale U.S. military expedition led by Admiral Richard Byrd, provides additional support for this theory. Officially, its mission was training flights and research into Arctic conditions for future combat operations. However, many noted strange details: the abrupt end of the mission, the loss of equipment, and Byrd's own cryptic statements about flying machines capable of crossing the pole at incredible speed. These words are still cited as possible evidence of the American military's encounter with something unknown hidden beneath the Antarctic ice. In the following decades, new elements were added to the story. In the mid-20th century, reports of unidentified objects in the skies above the South Pole appeared, as well as stories of strange radio signals emanating from deep within the continent. Conspiracy theorists combined these facts into a single narrative. The Nazis allegedly not only built bases, but also developed unusual technologies, possibly disc-shaped flying machines. Some theories mention collaboration with an unknown ancient civilization, whose traces may have been found beneath the Antarctic ice long before the arrival of humans. The scientific community officially rejects these stories, considering them a product of the Cold War and popular fantasy. No real evidence of the existence of Third Reich subglacial bases has been found, but interest in the topic remains enormous, as Antarctica remains virtually inaccessible to outsiders. The territory is strictly controlled by international treaties, and travel within the continent is severely restricted. This only heightens suspicions, because the less information available to the general public, the more easily new questions arise. The legend of Base 211 has become emblematic of how real historical events, like the New Swabia expedition and Operation High Jump, are intertwined with myth and conjecture. Perhaps Nazi engineers were genuinely searching for a way to build shelters in harsh conditions. Perhaps the American expedition encountered only natural difficulties. But Antarctica itself remains a place where any assumption seems plausible, and the cold ice hides its secrets too deeply to be easily dispelled. Pyramids of Antarctica. Hidden among the majestic ice deserts of Antarctica lies one of the most impressive and disturbing mysteries, which many believe to be proof of an ancient civilization. These are gigantic pyramid-like structures rising above the ice sheet. The first photographs of these formations began to appear in open sources in the late 20th century, when satellites captured strange, geometrically perfect shapes in images of Antarctica. Against the chaotic terrain of the continent, they stood out with their clear triangular edges and symmetry, too perfect for random natural formations. It was then that the theory arose that the ruins of colossal pyramids, created long before modern humanity, lay hidden beneath the thick ice. Several massifs in the Queen Maud land region have attracted particular attention. The photographs reveal snow-covered peaks that retain geometric regularity and angles approaching 90 degrees. Some researchers who have studied these images claim that these are not simply mountain peaks, but colossal artificial structures that could be tens of thousands of years old. More daring hypotheses suggest that the pyramids of Antarctica may be older than their Egyptian and Mayan counterparts, and perhaps even have their roots in times before the last ice age, when the continent was not yet covered by a kilometer-thick layer of ice. Skeptics, on the contrary, believe that what we see are simply nunataks, mountain peaks rising above the ice sheet. Indeed, a glacier can carve a slope into precise shapes, creating the illusion of regular lines. However, proponents of alternative theories point out that the symmetry is too great, and the arrangement of some structures resembles regular ensembles. They draw parallels with Giza, where the three Great Pyramids are arranged according to a pattern associated with the constellation Orion. According to enthusiasts, similar symmetry is also evident in Antarctica, and this can no longer be a mere coincidence. The question is further fueled by ancient maps, such as the Piri Reis map, which depicts the southern continent without ice cover in the early 16th century. It also reveals the outlines of the Antarctic coastline, discovered only in the 19th century. If such knowledge existed among navigators or their sources, it may have been the legacy of a civilization that existed before the global catastrophes. In this context, the pyramids become a symbol not of a random mountain formation, but of the ruins of a vanished culture, about which history is silent. At the beginning of the 21st century, rumors of secret expeditions to these sites began to circulate. Stories circulated online about military personnel and scientists allegedly exploring the pyramidal structures, but their findings were never published. Only isolated leaks and eyewitness accounts claimed passages and chambers with smooth walls had been discovered beneath the ice. Of course, there is no evidence to support these claims, but the silence of official sources only fuels suspicions. Scientists working in Antarctica have repeatedly noted that strict restrictions on travel across the continent hinder exploration of the most mysterious sites. International treaties prohibit access to many areas. Therefore, any new photograph of a geometrically perfect mountain peak immediately becomes the subject of debate. Is it an illusion of nature or evidence of an ancient presence? The legend of the Antarctic pyramids has become overgrown with myths about ancient priests, travelers from other worlds, and sunken civilizations like Atlantis. And although there is no evidence, the idea itself is so attractive that every new photograph or report from an expedition becomes a sensation. Perhaps these peaks really are unique mountain formations created by millennia of erosion. Or perhaps it is beneath them that lies the answer to the question of what our world was like before the advent of the glacial desert. About zero east, hidden beneath the ice in the heart of Antarctica, lies one of the most mysterious places on the planet, Lake Vostok. It lies at a depth of more than 4 kilometers and is separated from the surface by an impenetrable layer of ice that has prevented light and air from penetrating for thousands of years. This subglacial lake was discovered back in the 1960s, when Soviet scientists were conducting geophysical surveys of the continent. However, the true size of Vostok became known only decades later thanks to satellite imagery. In terms of area, it is comparable to the largest lakes in Europe and stretches for almost 250 kilometers. The main question that torments researchers concerns whether life has survived in this isolated world. If an ecosystem exists beneath the ice, it could have developed for millions of years in complete isolation from the outside world. This means that unique microorganisms unknown to modern science could live there. Attempts to drill through the ice sheet began in the late 20th century, but encountered enormous difficulties. Scientists feared that drilling fluids would contaminate the water, disrupting the natural balance. It was only in the early 2000s that a Russian expedition managed to reach the lake for the first time. But the samples obtained raised more questions than they answered. Traces of microorganisms were indeed found in the samples, but their origin remains controversial. Some experts are certain they are unique life forms, while others suspect contamination related to the drilling itself. The mystery remains unsolved, and the controversy surrounding it continues. Some researchers suggest that conditions in Lake Vostok may resemble the subglacial oceans of Europa or Enceladus, moons of giant planets. If life exists there, this would provide indirect evidence that similar biospheres may exist beyond Earth. Another mystery of the lake is its hydrothermal vents. It is believed that geothermal emissions may be hidden beneath the thick ice, warming the water from below. This explains why the lake hasn't frozen completely. But if the vents do exist, they could feed an entire ecosystem that has been invisible for millions of years. There are even more daring hypotheses. Some conspiracy theorists believe that the Vostok is the source of military and secret expeditions, rarely reported by official media. Rumors have surfaced that strange artifacts or even structures unlike natural ones may have been found beneath the ice. There is no evidence for this. But the mystery of this isolated world only fuels the imagination. Today, Lake Vostok remains one of Antarctica's greatest mysteries. It lies silent beneath a perpetual blanket of ice, but it may hold the key to understanding how life can survive in the harshest conditions. Unexplained satellite anomalies. Antarctica is a continent that raises new questions with every new satellite image. Modern technology allows us to examine its surface in exquisite detail, but it is precisely these images that have given rise to many mysteries. In photographs taken over the years, researchers have noticed strange lines, perfectly straight shapes, and objects too regular for the chaotic nature of the planet. One of the most famous anomalies is the geometric lines that cross the ice wastes in the Queen Maud Land region. On satellite maps, they appear as kilometer-long corridors or walls extending beneath the ice. Scientists explain this as cracks or traces of glacial movement, but the perfect symmetry raises the question of whether something artificial is hidden beneath the ice. Another object that has sparked heated discussion is a dark oval-shaped formation near the Antarctic Peninsula. In photographs, it appears to be the entrance to a gigantic underground cavity, approximately 100 meters wide. Some conspiracy theorists immediately linked it to legends of secret bases and entrances to the hollow Earth, while official sources stated that it was merely a shadow cast by a mountain range. Particular attention was also drawn to the unusual dome-shaped structures visible deep within the ice sheet. Their symmetry and row-like arrangement evoked associations with ancient structures or even giant radars. Scientists have suggested that these are ice domes formed by temperature and pressure fluctuations. However, many do not believe this arrangement is a coincidence, as the shapes are too regular. Another mystery surrounds the so-called Hamburger Hill, a mountain that appears perfectly round and multi-layered in satellite images. Its summit resembles a gigantic structure, as if erected by hand. Some believe this is the result of unique geology, while others speculate that the mountain may conceal an ancient base or the ruins of a pre-Ice Age civilization. The sudden disappearance of some images has raised no less questions. Users have repeatedly noted that certain areas on the maps are obscured by pixels or blurry spots. The official explanation is that these are data processing errors or sensitive military base areas. But for mystery lovers, these spots have become proof that something is indeed being hidden in Antarctica. All these anomalies have one thing in common. They are inaccessible to direct exploration. The continent remains isolated, expeditions are strictly controlled, and access to the most interesting areas is impossible. Therefore, every new satellite photo becomes a source of debate, hypotheses, and bold theories. Antarctica seems to continue to guard its secrets, allowing only occasional glimpses of mysterious outlines beneath the thickness of eternal ice. And so far, no one can definitively answer where the natural accident ends and the traces of something entirely different begin. Hamburger Hill under the ice. Amid the icy expanses of Antarctica, a mysterious mountain has drawn the attention of researchers. It appears too unusual in satellite images to be a random formation. It has been nicknamed Hamburger Hill because of its distinctive shape. Its rounded peak appears to be composed of several layers, reminiscent of a giant layer cake. At first glance, one might assume that this is a typical mountain range created by the movement of glaciers and wind erosion. But the symmetry and multi-layered structure are so perfect that many believe it to be an artificial object hidden under an ice dome. Particularly disturbing is the fact that the summit is almost perfectly flat and round, and its diameter exceeds several hundred meters. Conspiracy theorists put forward bold theories. Some believe it is an ancient structure, erected by a civilization that existed long before the Ice Age. Others believe the mountain may be a camouflage dome covering the entrance to underground complexes. There are even hypotheses that a huge technical structure, from a giant hangar to an antenna of unknown origin, may be hidden beneath the ice. Scientists are skeptical of such claims. They argue that round and multi-layered rock formations can form naturally. Prolonged ice pressure, freeze-thaw cycles, and the characteristics of the rock can give the massif the appearance of an ordered structure. But even among geologists, there is no consensus. This object looks too unusual in the images. Particularly suspicious is the extremely limited official information about the area. No expeditions have been conducted to the Hamburger Hill area, and information about it comes only from satellite observations. Moreover, some images have disappeared from public access over time or have become blurry. This has fueled rumors that the mountain may be of interest to military or scientific projects, which the general public prefers not to disclose. For Antarctica's mysteries, Hamburger Hill has become a symbol of how little we know about Earth's most inaccessible continent. Perhaps we are looking at a rare natural wonder that only appears artificial, or perhaps it holds the key to understanding the secret still held by kilometers of eternal ice. Meteorites with signs of life. Antarctica is known not only for its icy wastelands, but also as a prime location for meteorite discovery. Unique conditions, clear ice, transparency, and the constant movement of glaciers create an ideal trap for space rocks. Over the past decades, several thousand fragments have been discovered here. But among them, some have challenged conventional ideas about the origin of life. Discovered in the early 1990s, attracted particular attention. Officially, it came from Mars millions of years ago and was ejected into space by a large asteroid impact. It fell to Earth approximately 13,000 years ago, and the ice of Antarctica preserved the stone in near-perfect condition. When scientists began examining the sample, they discovered structures resembling fossilized microbes inside. These tiny formations were shaped like threads and spheres, which caused a sensation. Could life once have existed on Mars? The debate about this continues to this day. Skeptics believe that the traces could have appeared as a result of terrestrial pollution or chemical reactions unrelated to living organisms. But supporters of the extraterrestrial life hypothesis are confident that such findings cannot be ignored. Antarctica played a key role in this story because its eternal ice preserved meteorites from destruction. Every new rock found here becomes a potential source of information about distant planets and asteroids. Moreover, some researchers argue that conditions deep within the continent may resemble those in outer space. And if meteorites contain traces of life, they could also be preserved for millions of years under Antarctic ice. This idea has given rise to bold theories. Perhaps Antarctica holds not only cosmic messages but also evidence of life transfer via meteorites. According to the panspermia hypothesis, life could have spread throughout the universe in precisely this way. And the findings in Antarctic meteorites became one of the first indirect confirmations of this theory. The story has sparked interest not only among scientists but also among mystery lovers. For some, it's proof that humanity is not alone in the universe. For others, it's a hint that our origins may go much further back than is commonly believed. And the very fact that such discoveries are occurring in Antarctica only enhances its mystical reputation. Today, research continues. New meteorites are found every season, and each time the question arises: what will they bring? Mere silent pieces of rock or evidence that life once existed beyond Earth? And Antarctic maps of the past? One of the most troubling mysteries surrounding Antarctica is the ancient maps that depict the continent long before its official discovery. Particularly famous is the map created by the Turkish admiral Piri Reis in the early 16th century. Along with Africa and South America, it shows the outline of the southern continent free of ice. This detail raised many questions. How could a cartographer depict a continent hidden under kilometers of ice if even today its coastline is only partially explored? The official version is that Piri Reis used fragments of older maps passed down to him by Greek or Roman navigators. But this explanation does not answer the main question. How could ancient civilizations have acquired such knowledge? In the mid-20th century, American military geographers studied the Piri Reis map and concluded that the outlines of Antarctica on it coincided remarkably precisely with the subglacial relief established through seismological research. This meant that the cartographer truly had information about the continent before the onset of the Ice Age. Besides the Piri Reis map, there are other mysterious sources. These include maps by Orontius Phineus, dating from the 16th century, which also show a southern land, distorted, but still reminiscent of Antarctica. In some images, mountain ranges can be discerned, which were only confirmed many centuries later. All this makes one wonder about the possibility of civilizations in the past that possessed a knowledge of geography at a level inaccessible to their time. Skeptics argue that the coincidences are random, and the outlines of the continents could be the result of measurement errors. But then it remains unclear why the coastlines match modern maps so precisely that even scientists are forced to admit the probability of chance is too small. Alternative theories link these maps to the mythical Atlantis, or even more ancient civilizations that disappeared as a result of global catastrophes. They may have left behind knowledge that reached medieval cartographers in a distorted form. Antarctica, in this case, becomes not just a continent of ice, but a repository of secrets about the Earth's past. These mysterious maps continue to spark heated debate. Some see them as proof that human history is far deeper and more complex than is commonly believed. Others dismiss them as the product of fortunate coincidences and a desire for sensationalism. But the fact remains, The images of Antarctica that appeared centuries before its discovery have never been definitively explained. Sounds from the depths. Antarctica, covered by a multi-kilometer thick shell of ice, sometimes emits signals that defy conventional scientific logic. One of the most puzzling phenomena is the mysterious sounds emanating from the depths of the continent. They were first recorded in the mid-20th century, when military personnel and scientists were installing a network of hydrophones to study the movement of glaciers and the vibrations of the Earth's crust. Instead of the expected hum, crackling, and grinding, they received recordings of low-s, booming signals reminiscent of a mechanical roar. These noises were unofficially dubbed the beating of Antarctica. What made them unique was that they spread for hundreds of kilometers and were audible even in ocean regions far beyond the continent. Their frequency and rhythm did not resemble earthquakes or ordinary cracks in ice. It seemed as if a gigantic mechanism were hidden within, operating according to its own laws. In the late 1950s, Soviet researchers noted that the sounds were repeating with a certain periodicity. Sometimes they resembled blows occurring at regular intervals, sometimes a drawn-out bass note that gradually faded. Comparing recordings from different years, scientists noticed that the anomalies always occurred in the same areas, indicating a constant source. There are scientific explanations. Some experts believe that the source may be subglacial volcanoes hidden in the depths of the continent. Heat from geothermal activity can cause ice shifts and underground steam explosions. Others believe that the sounds are generated by the movement of giant ice masses, which, when compressed, emit low-frequency vibrations. But both versions fail to explain the regularity and unusual structure of the signals. In the 1970s, American stations recorded powerful acoustic bursts emanating from depths of more than 20 kilometers. They were comparable in strength to underground explosions, but were not accompanied by seismic tremors. This baffled scientists, as such processes are typically accompanied by tremors in the Earth's surface. A theory emerged about gigantic underground cavities or oceans where processes unknown to modern geophysics were taking place. Riddle enthusiasts have offered their own interpretations. They believe the sounds could be signals from underground structures or even messages encrypted in low frequencies. Some theories link these noises to legends of cities hidden beneath Antarctica or entrances to subterranean worlds. There is no evidence for this, but the very unusual nature of the signals provides grounds for such theories. Skeptics, however, claim that nature explains everything. They say the Antarctic ice sheet is so vast and dynamic that it's capable of producing a wide variety of sounds. The low frequency creates a voice of the Earth effect, which we interpret as something mysterious. But even proponents of science are forced to admit, not all cases have been explained, and some recordings remain unexplained. At the beginning of the 21st century, new research confirmed that sounds from the depths are still being recorded today. Modern sensors can detect them even over great distances, and sometimes the structure of the signals is remarkably similar to regular pulses. This again brings to mind the idea that something more than simple geological processes may be occurring beneath the ice. Antarctica remains silent and yet speaks at the same time. It seems to be speaking to humanity in its own language, the language of booming thuds and low-frequency roars. And while we cannot decipher this language, we can only wonder whether these sounds conceal secrets of nature or hint at the presence of forces we are as yet unaware of. The lost expeditions. The history of Antarctic exploration has always been fraught with risk and mystery. This continent is unforgiving. Icy winds, freezing temperatures, and endless deserts turn any expedition into a survival test. But even more frightening is the fact that some teams and individual explorers have disappeared without a trace. Their camps were found abandoned, their tracks vanished in the snow, and no one has ever offered an explanation. One of the first alarming cases occurred during an expedition in the early 20th century. A British polar expedition set out for the South Pole to plant a national flag and collect scientific data. The participants' diaries contain accounts of intolerable conditions and rare equipment failures. But then the letters stopped. When a rescue party reached their intended route several months later, they found only scattered supply crates and a dilapidated tent. Not the slightest trace remained of the explorers themselves. No less mysterious is the story of a Norwegian team that attempted to cross the continent in the 1930s. Initially, everything went well. They sent telegraph messages about their route and recorded new geographical points. But after a few weeks, communication was lost. When the searchers reached their supposed camp, they found only icy sleds and items neatly stacked in a pile, as if the men had left and never returned. Their bodies were never found. In the post-war years, mysterious disappearances recurred. Scientific teams from various countries reported the disappearance of colleagues who had gone off to explore glaciers or mountain ranges. In some cases, remains were found. But more often than not, all traces were lost forever. Even modern search technologies were unable to determine where these people might have gone. It felt as if the Earth itself was swallowing up those who tried to probe too deeply into its mysteries. There are many explanations. Some researchers claim that the tragedies are connected to sudden ice breaks and hidden crevasses, into which a person can fall and disappear forever. Others point to unpredictable weather, which can wipe out an entire camp in a matter of hours. But proponents of alternative theories see something more in these disappearances. They suggest that there are zones of anomalous magnetic fields on the continent that affect navigation and lead to disorientation. There are even more daring hypotheses. Some link the disappearances to subglacial voids that explorers may have accidentally entered. Others claim that military expeditions conducted in the mid-20th century concealed encounters with unknown phenomena, which they chose to remain silent about. Rumors of secret zones and closed areas of Antarctica only reinforce these theories. These stories remain a grim reminder of how dangerous and incomprehensible this continent is. It's as if Antarctica itself decides who it will allow into its territory and who it will leave forever under the eternal snow. Each vanished expedition becomes a new legend, and each unsolved disappearance another chapter in the book of mysteries of the sixth continent. Under ice tunnels. Among the numerous hypotheses about Antarctica, legends of giant tunnels hidden beneath thick ice occupy a special place. These ideas emerged in the mid-20th century, when the first radar studies began to reveal strange voids in the depths of the continent. According to the official version, these are natural caverns formed by meltwater or ancient volcanic activity. But conspiracy theorists are certain that such tunnels are too large and too precisely positioned to be the work of nature alone. Data obtained in the late 1960s generated particular interest. Geophysical surveys recorded anomalies resembling corridors extending tens of kilometers into the ground. Some were over 300 meters wide and tall enough to support the movement of enormous objects. Skeptics called them traces of glacial movement, but proponents of alternative theories claimed they were proof of the existence of hidden infrastructure. In the 1980s, reports began appearing in the Western press that such voids could be used by the military. Legends linked them to secret bases from World War II. It was believed that German expeditions could hide from the world through such tunnels. More daring theories claimed that entire complexes existed beneath the ice, connected by a vast network of passages. Modern satellite data only heightens interest in this topic. In some areas of Antarctica, mysterious sinkholes have been spotted, their shapes too regular to be accidental. Photographs reveal round or rectangular entrances seemingly leading into the icy continent. Some of these images soon disappear from public view, fueling speculation that the authorities are deliberately concealing the truth. Scientists explain things differently. They claim that voids actually exist beneath the ice, created by the heat of volcanoes or underground springs. Geothermal activity in some areas can melt the ice and form giant cavities resembling tunnels. But even these explanations leave too much unknown. The size of some voids is such that no known natural model can explain their origin. For mystery lovers, the tunnels have become proof of the existence of underground worlds. Some associate them with ancient civilizations that may have retreated underground after global catastrophes. Others see them as traces of extraterrestrial technology, allowing for the construction of shelters even in the harshest conditions. Rumors of entrances to such tunnels discovered by expeditions only fuel interest. Antarctica holds its secrets beneath a kilometer-thick sheet of ice, and unraveling them is not easy. Perhaps the subglacial tunnels truly are a natural wonder, shaped by time and the elements. But it's also possible that they hold answers to the most troubling questions about the sixth continent's past and present, and normal magnetic fields. From the very beginning of exploration, Antarctica has attracted attention not only for its climate, but also for its mysterious magnetic anomalies. As early as the early 20th century, polar expeditions noted that compasses there behaved strangely. The needle would fluctuate for long periods, point in the wrong direction, and sometimes even freeze. Early explorers attributed this to the proximity of the South Magnetic Pole, but it later became clear that the anomalies were not limited to that location. In the mid-20th century, pilots on aerial reconnaissance missions reported sudden instrument deviations when flying over certain areas. Aircraft would suddenly lose their bearings, navigation systems would malfunction, and instrument readings would become inconsistent. These areas were quickly dubbed magnetic death zones, where equipment would fail to function, as if colliding with an invisible force. Scientists have offered various explanations. Some believe that vast deposits of iron ore lay beneath the continent, distorting the magnetic field. Others link the phenomenon to geothermal activity and volcanic rocks containing magnetic minerals. However, research has shown that the anomalies are too large-scale and regular to be explained solely by the properties of the rocks. In the 1960s, theories emerged that magnetic anomalies could indicate the presence of gigantic voids beneath the ice. These cavities could contain massive metal objects left over from ancient catastrophes or, as alternative hypotheses suggest, from highly developed civilizations. It was then that legends arose about structures hidden beneath the Antarctic ice, creating magnetic traps for instruments. Modern satellite observations have confirmed that sharp fluctuations in the magnetic field are indeed being recorded in the Queen Maud Land region and some other regions. This data is being carefully studied, but official explanations are few. Many scientists prefer to avoid making sweeping statements, limiting themselves to cautious statements about unusual geophysical processes. Such phenomena have become direct evidence that Antarctica's depths conceal secrets beyond the scope of official science. They believe magnetic anomalies could be a side effect of hidden installations, ancient energy sources, or even mechanisms left behind by extraterrestrial civilizations. The average person is left to guess. Access to many areas of Antarctica is strictly limited, and expeditions are rare and only conducted under the supervision of international organizations. The continent's magnetic fields remain an incomprehensible mystery, and instruments and compasses repeatedly record findings that defy conventional scientific explanations. With a silver disk over the ice fields, among the many mysteries of Antarctica, the testimonies of pilots and explorers who claim to have observed strange objects above the ice stand out. These stories date back to the 1940s, when military expeditions recorded unidentified phenomena in the skies above the South Pole. Official reports were rarely published, but isolated leaks spoke of silvery disks flying at incredible speeds and disappearing over the horizon. In the 1950s, an American polar explorer, returning from a flight over the icy plains, reported a strange glow emanating from behind the clouds. As the plane approached, the crew noticed a perfectly round metallic shape glinting in the sun. The object made no noise but moved against the wind, then suddenly gained altitude and disappeared. This story was never officially confirmed, but it became one of the most famous Antarctic legends. In the following decades, other reports emerged. Several expeditions recorded strange radar blips that would appear suddenly and disappear just as quickly. Sometimes these were accompanied by visual observations of flying objects. Most often they were described as silver or white disks, sometimes elongated into a cigar shape. In the vast ice, such apparitions were particularly frightening. Scientists attempted to explain the phenomenon. It was believed that they could be optical illusions caused by sunlight reflecting off ice crystals. In Antarctica, the atmosphere is indeed capable of creating unusual effects. Light pillars, mirages, and strange shadows. But such explanations were unsatisfactory to those who had personally observed the objects, who claimed that their behavior did not resemble a trick of the light. Operation High Jump, conducted in the late 1940s, attracted particular attention to the topic. According to unofficial accounts, it was during this mission that American troops encountered an unknown enemy in the skies over Antarctica. Official reports attributed the loss of equipment to harsh conditions, but conspiracy theorists are certain that encounters with flying objects, whose origin remains a mystery, were recorded. Today, satellite cameras and random witnesses continue to record strange glowing dots over the ice fields. Some are convinced that these are secret drones used for research, while others associate them with extraterrestrial technology. Theories multiply, but none have been definitively confirmed. The silver disk over Antarctica has become a symbol of how little we know about the planet's most isolated continent. Perhaps these are just rare atmospheric phenomena, or perhaps the answer to one of humanity's most troubling questions, are we alone in the universe, lies hidden above the silent ice. Secret missions of the USA and the USSR. Since its discovery, Antarctica has always been an object of not only scientific interest but also military ambition. As early as the mid-20th century, large expeditions began to be sent here, officially called exploratory, but their scale and equipment more closely resembled military operations. The most famous was the U.S. mission of the late 1940s, known as Operation High Jump. More than 4,000 people. Dozens of aircraft and ships took part in it. According to official data, the goal was to prepare the Army for combat operations in icy and cold conditions. But many facts indicate that the objectives were far more serious. Military reports from the time mentioned equipment losses and the abrupt end of the operation attributed to severe weather conditions. However, rumors persisted that the expedition encountered unknown phenomena. There were reports of aerial battles with unidentified objects, navigational failures, and orders to abort the mission without completing all plans. These details became the basis for the versions that it was the United States that first attempted to explore the complexes hidden under the ice, or even made contact with something located in the depths of the continent. The Soviet Union also played a role. In the 1950s and 1960s, dozens of scientific teams were sent to the South Pole, but some of their work was conducted in the strictest secrecy. Soviet scientists were actively engaged in drilling, mapping, and collecting samples. But rumors circulated that the main goal was to search for underground cavities and anomalous zones, which were already being mapped. Archival documents declassified decades later contain references to unexplained magnetic disturbances and areas where equipment failed to operate. These materials were not widely publicized, but they fuel theories that both the USSR and the US knew something unusual existed beneath the ice and were eager to be the first to uncover the mystery. Some conspiracy theorists believe that both powers were simultaneously developing projects to create subglacial bases that could be used as shelters for strategic weapons. During the Cold War, Antarctica seemed an ideal location, remote, inaccessible, and able to conceal everything from prying eyes. However, in 1959, an international treaty was signed regarding Antarctica, banning any military action on the continent. Officially, it guaranteed that the icy expanses would be used exclusively for science. But this fact also raises suspicions. Did the superpowers voluntarily abandon such a strategically important region? Many are convinced that the treaty was merely a cover, and that secret work continues beneath the ice. Today, Antarctica remains one of the most secluded places on Earth. Access is strictly regulated, and most areas are closed to visitors without special permission. Perhaps this is simply due to environmental concerns. But stories of secret missions by the US and the USSR remind us that behind the apparent silence may lie a struggle for secrets that humanity is not yet ready to reveal. Living organisms from ice, Antarctica is often imagined as a lifeless desert, where almost nothing survives except penguins and marine animals. But the reality is far more frightening and mysterious. Hidden within the depths of the ice sheet, which is millions of years old, are organisms unlike any known to science. The first reports of discoveries appeared in the mid-20th century, when researchers began drilling boreholes and extracting ice samples from depths of several kilometers. Some samples were found to contain bacteria that not only remained intact, but also showed signs of life. The most high-profile drilling story was in the Lake Vostok area. In the early 2000s, Russian expeditions drilled through a kilometer-thick layer of ice and recovered water samples. They found microscopic forms within them, distinct from all known microorganisms on Earth. Scientists believed this could be a new type of life, adapted to absolute darkness, pressure, and the absence of oxygen. Skeptics claimed the samples were contaminated, but subsequent studies showed that unique organisms do indeed inhabit the Antarctic ice. Similar discoveries were later made in other areas. In ice cores over hundreds of thousands of years old, scientists discovered microorganisms capable of reviving after long periods of dormancy. These bacteria and fungi seemed frozen in time, awaiting the moment when conditions would allow them to reactivate. This phenomenon shocked the scientific community, as it proved that life can exist even in conditions previously considered completely dead. Some researchers have gone even further. They have suggested that such organisms may not simply be isolated forms, but relict creatures, preserved from a time when the Earth's climate was completely different. More daring theories suggest that these microorganisms could have entered the ice sheet from outside, for example, on meteorites. In this case, Antarctica becomes a kind of repository of the planet's ancient memory, and, perhaps, even proof of the hypothesis of the extraterrestrial origin of life. However, an aura of mystery always surrounds these discoveries. Many samples disappeared from open publications, and official reports of new discoveries were often hushed up. This gave rise to theories that scientists had discovered something far more dangerous and unusual than simple microorganisms. Some theories suggest the existence of life forms in subglacial lakes that could pose a threat to humanity if they one day surfaced. Official science is cautious in its formulations, Scientists acknowledge that life forms unknown to modern biology do indeed lurk beneath the ice, but they refuse to draw conclusions about their origin or possible evolution. For conspiracy theorists, this sounds like an indirect admission that Antarctica holds secrets for which the world is not yet prepared. Antarctica once again reminds us of itself not as a desert, but as a living world where life exists in defiance of all laws. The ice preserves organisms that have survived millions of years, and perhaps it is here that lies the key to understanding how life can survive in the most hostile corners of the universe. Hypothesis about the entrance to the underworld. One of the most ancient and frightening is the hypothesis that the entrance to the underworld is located here. Legends of hidden cities and civilizations living inside the Earth have existed since ancient times, but it was in the 20th century that Antarctica became the focus of these myths. It is believed that giant tunnels and passages leading into the depths of the planet may be located beneath its ice. One of the first to unwittingly fuel this theory was Admiral Richard Byrd. In the mid-20th century, he led major expeditions to Antarctica. His diaries, the authenticity of which is still debated, contain mentions of strange observations. He allegedly described flying over lands where green valleys opened up beneath the ice, and the air was filled with warmth. Moreover, he encountered unusual animals there, supposedly survivors of the age of dinosaurs. Such reports sparked a veritable explosion of interest in the Hollow Earth theory. Proponents of the theory claim that vast entrances to subterranean worlds, carefully hidden from human eyes, exist in the region of the South Pole. They pointed to satellite photographs of circular darkened areas in areas of Antarctica that supposedly represent gateways to other worlds. Scientists explain things differently. They believe Byrd's stories are nothing more than legends, and the dark spots in the images are caused by image processing and light effects. However, proponents of this hypothesis are convinced that official explanations merely conceal the truth. After all, Antarctica remains a closed continent, extremely difficult to access, and many of its regions are completely inaccessible to independent research. A special place in these legends is occupied by the myth of Shambhala and Agartha, subterranean civilizations that supposedly have an entrance beneath the South Pole. Their inhabitants are believed to possess ancient knowledge and technologies inaccessible to the modern world. Some versions claim that the Nazis, during their expeditions to Antarctica, attempted to find these entrances, seeking to establish contact with the Lords of the Underworld. Modern researchers are documenting evidence of gigantic subglacial voids that actually exist beneath the continent. Their origin is most often attributed to volcanic activity and melting glaciers. But for proponents of the hypothesis, this is direct confirmation of the existence of vast spaces within the Earth. This means that the theory of an entrance to the underworld gains new support. For science, such versions remain myths. But for those who seek mysteries and symbols, Antarctica continues to be a gateway to the unknown. The ice sheet seems to conceal not only the planet's ancient secrets, but also the possibility that somewhere beneath our feet lurks another world we are not yet able to understand. Antarctica remains Earth's last great mystery, a continent where legends mingle with fact and timeless secrets lie beneath thick ice. Here, past and future collide in the silent cold, leaving humanity with only hints and questions whose answers have yet to be found.